Interesting.
I want to thank everybody for coming. So many of you have been a part of my journey for a very long time, and it's really exciting to share this evening with you. And especially to be joined here by David Cooper. David Cooper has been a very important teacher and mentor and friend of mine for a really long time.
Oh, you're making me all blush.
Really long time. He has been one of my most important teachers because it took me a long time to say I was a photographer. And David accepts everybody where they're at. No matter where they're at in their photography journey, and never made me feel less than what I was. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And tonight we're going to have conversations about my process, what it is I do, why it's different, why I'm excited about it, why some other people are excited about it. So he has questions, but please feel free. You're part of tonight too. So if you have any questions and want to hear more about a specific topic, please don't be shy. So thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thanks for coming tonight. It's a miserable night, and I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to be invited to this, and I'm grateful to see a room full of people here tonight because it's a cold, miserable, rainy night, and you could be anywhere tonight. You could be in your house all snug and warm and dry, and you chose to come out tonight. So thanks for coming out and supporting us and supporting Erica and seeing her work. Her work is really vital, and it's really important, and I'm just glad to see so many people here tonight. So I met Erica probably 10 years ago. We were trying to figure this out when we first met, and we couldn't remember. And she took a class of mine, which led to several classes of mine. Her husband, Robert, took a couple of classes from me as well. And we've just kind of known each other ever since. So I think it's been 10 years, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah. So and it's been a real pleasure to see the progress of the work. One of the benefits of instruction is to watch the journey, watch the progress of students in general. This is where you started, this is where you're progressing, this is where you are now, these are the plans that you project into the future. So to watch that journey and to see the improvement is one of the best rewards of the job. And it's really spectacular. Because even, when I would teach a class, I would have students bring in work first night of class, second night of class, and then final review in the last night of class. And everyone together would collectively grow, which is why teaching for me was so rewarding. And so fast forward 10 years, and we're all sitting here admiring the work that's on the walls. And 10 years ago, when we met, this was not in the works for you. So, we're not here to talk about day jobs. You have a day job that's very important. You've got a life-saving day job, and you always kind of shrug it off. And we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about life outside of work, and life is more than work. And it's about following passions and finding that path through finding beauty and finding a passion and finding joy. And sometimes it coincides with work and sometimes it doesn't. And so you took this class because you wanted to find something outside, something more, because life is more than just work. And in order to find something more, something outside of work, you kind of tumbled down the photography rabbit hole, which is a very convoluted and messy and expensive rabbit hole, which we all know. But it yields the work that's here today. And the work that's hanging on the walls here, I think, it's really vibrant, and in my mind, it's really optimistic. So that's my take. So my take means nothing. Everyone here brings a different history, a different story to the table, to the conversation. So when I look at this work, I feel like it's very, very optimistic, which is a very good thing. So I do have a few quick notes, but I'm not good at staying on script. However, the one thing that I do want to point out in the email, and I'm going to read verbatim, step 1, introduction, Erica is pretty cool. So I would be remiss if I did not mention that. But we all know that's true anyway. So that's the least disputed thing at all. So, I mean, the show's theme is My Heart Sings. And it's always fascinating for me to see photography as abstract art, because photography tends to be a very literal art form. You take a camera, you go out, you find something in the world that exists, and you document it. And most people don't think of abstract photography because you think of painting, you think of sculpture, where you're trying to create something from nothing. You have a blank canvas, you have a lump of clay, you have a blank notebook, something like that. So the creative process where you literally create something from nothing. However, in this case, you are using a tool which is primarily a documentary tool and converting it into a much more abstract process in multiple ways, with your multiple exposures, with the alcohol ink drawings, with the combinations. And it's a fascinating process. And for me, I've always thought it was very fascinating simply because it's out of the realm of straight photography as well. And for me, I would always struggle with creating something from nothing. And I think I kind of fell into photography in art school because I was always passionate about art, but I couldn't paint and I couldn't sculpt. And I'm a terrible musician and I'm terrible at a lot of things, but I could take pictures. And I'm always in awe of people who can create something from nothing. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you came about this? So the theme itself, My Heart Sings. Let's start with that. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more about your theme and what we have going on?
Sure. My Heart Sings is kind of a testament to finding my passion. For a long time, I didn't know what passion was. It was really interesting. I was in graduate school and working on I think it was my dissertation. It was supposed to be my dissertation. And one of my colleagues was like, you were not passionate. And I was so angry because I thought passion was working really hard, getting good grades, still doing very well. But that's not what passion is. Passion is what wakes you up in the morning early, excited to get out of bed. Who cares if you brushed your hair or brushed your teeth? Like, you want to get into it. So for a long time, I didn't know what that was. I knew that I had to figure it out, and I knew a camera was a way for me to figure it out. And a couple years ago, the other thing I wanted to do was to make something nobody else could make. There's so many landscape photographers all taking pictures of the moon from Mount Washington, and they're lovely, and people really love them. Who doesn't love Pittsburgh? But I wanted to do something that nobody else could do. So I think that added pressure. That just, I don't know. And one day I just took some multiple exposure photos and was like, oh, interesting. What if I did something else? So for those of you that have ever held a film camera, you might know that a multiple exposure is just when you take two pictures at the same time. You may or may not mean to do so, but It's a creative way of photography. I could do that with my camera, with my digital camera. So people are like, how do you do that with you can do that with your digital camera. But I didn't want to do just that. I wanted to find another way to do the multiple exposure. And then I started to collaborate. I collaborated with a painter friend and made my first, the tulips back in the very back, numbers 8 and 9. If you want to see my very first multiple exposure flower photographs, those are it. And that started all this. I was like, holy cow, this is awesome. And flowers. You know, some people love flowers. Some people are like, why do you spend the money on things that just die? And gosh, I just love them. I can't look at a dahlia without just being totally amazed with every single dahlia I ever see. And to be okay with that making me happy, like something simple making me so happy. Like when COVID hit, my self-care during COVID was ordering flowers. And I was like, well, I'm buying money from this, I'm spending money and having flowers shipped directly from a farm. That's so ridiculous. Why would I do that? And I got them. I'm like, I've never been happier. So
That sounds like it's money well spent then.
money well spent. So there's a piece out there titled My Heart Sings, actually on your thank you gift. This is My Heart Sings. This is a dahlia. The whole series is just about me falling in love with the dahlia and falling in love with this art process. And just being so stinking happy.
We're close to the firehouse.
Yep.
Yeah, the borough building.
Did I answer both your questions? The how and the...
Possibly. Probably.
Oh, the paintings, I guess. So, then I started to do my own paintings. And what the whole process has transitioned into is I start with an alcohol ink painting, and then I find a flower and somehow bring the two together. It's a little distracting.
The fire's not here, so you don't have
The
to.
fire's not. Take a moment to hope that everybody's okay out there.
So you mentioned the alcohol ink paintings. What does an alcohol ink painting look like without? So we see the final product. We don't see the initial painting. Is it simply blobs of color?
Yeah, right now, so the alcohol ink is very concentrated pigment, super duper concentrated. And you use a special kind of paper called Yupo. And can you guys even hear me in the back? Okay. What? The ink slides across the Yupo. So you can breathe on it. You can use different things to move the alcohol around. Right now, I just play with drops and just watching the science happen on the paper and seeing things diffuse across. So that's why a lot of those are very circular, right? The ink is very circular because right now I'm really playing with drops and mixing. My process has started to evolve where the alcohol ink, the painting itself represents either something that I'm going through. So it could be a health challenge, it could be a career challenge, it could be just something that I'm struggling to learn or grow around. And then by the end of the process, I'll have a piece like Start Where You Are, that's the positive outcome of dealing with that subject matter. So, yeah, there's a number of pieces in there that their name and significance, they're significant. Like, you know, healing through art.
Which is a very positive way of addressing the healing. And, you know, especially the last couple of years, I'm sure that everyone in this room has experienced some type of trauma, pain, something. You know, it's been a rough couple of years for a lot of people, and even not the last couple of years in our life. I mean, that's what makes us human, is that there are ups and downs. But how we address the healing process is a very difficult decision. It involves a lot of choices, and you can make positive choices for healing. You can make, you know, if you choose not to, or you can choose negative ways. But one of the reasons why I feel that this is such an optimistic show, partially because of the bright colors, is that it's a very positive and productive way of addressing the healing process, where you recognize the process in that it helps you to heal, it helps you to grow, and you come out on the other side stronger and healthier, which is a really, really positive thing to do. And it takes a ton of work. It's hard. This stuff's not easy. It takes a long time. Well, I mean, healing takes a long time. So, do you want to talk some more about? So, I mean, I mentioned earlier that everyone brings something different to a gallery show. You know, when you come in here, we all have our own backgrounds, we all have our own histories, we all have our own stories, we all have our own memories. So when you look at a show, none of us are looking at the same show. We're not processing it the same way. We're all looking at the same work, but everyone brings their own personality, their own history, their own story to the table. So when you see a print for the first time, you make connections. And it's a very personal connection when you're looking at it, which is why everyone in this room can look at this work and find something different, you know, a different type of connection, a different way to connect with the work. And the titles always help, but the titles are rather open-ended, intentionally or not intentionally. So if something is just called healing or something's called strength, that helps to maybe prompt you in one direction when you're looking at an abstract piece, but then you look at this image and the title says strength, so it reminds you, it makes you think, how does this relate to me? And when you ask the question, how does it relate to me personally, we're all going to have a different answer to that, which is why when you look at abstract art, sometimes it's deep and meaningful to you, sometimes it means nothing to you, and that's fine. You know, it's fine. You don't have to connect with every piece of art at the museum. You don't have to connect. You don't have to like it, because it may not speak to your particular story, and that's fine. But when you do find work that speaks to you, it speaks, you know, viscerally on a very deep level. So you're looking at this work and you're talking about healing, and you look at it, so that makes you start to think, oh, how have I healed? Or what do I still need to heal? Or what in the past have I healed? Or what's still going on? Or so it makes you start to think, and it makes you start to reflect on your own life. Healing could be physical. Healing could be emotional. Healing could be family. It may not be you, it might be a loved one. So that's a very open-ended topic, and it could address a number of different issues, which, in this case, everyone looks at it, we all walk out of here with a different interpretation, and that's one of the beauties of visual art like this. You know, we all walk out being able to address it and process it a little bit and think about it and relate to it. And so you were using this as a healing technique. Do you want to talk some more about, you know, some of your health issues from the last couple of years? Did you want to go into that?
Sure. I've been sick for a number of years, and finally, through my persistence, which I'm known for my persistence, I was diagnosed with cancer at the beginning of this year, and I've been trying to negotiate that that big thing. And there's a lot of other things that are connected to that, but I'll leave it at that. My work, Start Where You Are, which is what I'm wearing now, really got me through the last year. Because, there's a lot of things, we should ourselves a lot. I should be here with my career. I should have gotten this diagnosis sooner. I should be mad at my doctor. I don't know. Insert one of the 20 million things that you yourself tell yourself that you should be doing. But really, start where you are is really what you have to embrace, because wherever you're at is where you've grown to, what skills you have, and where you need to go. So there's, not sure if I'm doing a good job of saying that, but for me, I would just wake up and be like, okay, today this is how I feel. There's things I will try to do today, but the only place I can start, the only place I can be is exactly where I am right this second. So, as I was navigating the year, I really just always held on to that, and it freed me to just do what I needed to do without having all that pressure. There's Start Where You Are has a couple of pieces in it. The second piece in that series is just take one step. So just take one step and then another, and then celebrate. There might be a fifth one in there. So Start Where You Are and Take One Step were the two things I would tell myself every day. In the worst days, it was like, just get out of bed, or just get a hug from Robert. Just one thing. And if you can, on your worst days, if you can do that one thing, you'll feel better, and you'll be proud that you did that one thing. So that, for me, is what that piece means, but that also, wherever you're at in your life, whatever it is you're struggling with, start where you are and just take one step can be applied to whatever it is you're struggling with. I believe I've had other people say that they've used that, one of those sayings when they were struggling with something. So, and that's the greatest gift, is I don't care how much art I have on people's walls, but if somebody is going to be like, hey, I told myself this the other day and it helped me do X, that's unquantifiable and I don't even know how to say it. My heart wants to explode. Mm-hmm. That's the best. So, and that's what my art, from a very young age, my goal in life was to make a difference and to make other people's lives better. I thought that was by being a doctor, which I quickly decided I didn't want to do that. Engineering and then research are good ways to do that, but not as intimate. But now with art, now I can be closer to people and see how it affects people. And I want that. I want to make things that make people happy and help them heal.
So that kind of transitions into the wearable art segment of your gallery show, because it's not often when you say, I'm going to go to look at a photography exhibit and I bought a scarf.
Yeah.
That doesn't normally make sense, but in this instance, it is, and it does, and you're wearing it now, and there's more for sale over here. So can you talk a little bit about how you decided to transition into the garments? Because it's very symbolic that the items that you make represent strength, represent healing, represent hope, represent getting out of bed in the morning, representing taking one more step. So in that, it allows other people simply to wrap themselves in that. I mean, it's got a lot of symbolism that most people don't know, because you just look at it or you buy it and you say, wow, it's quite a scarf. There's a lot more going on underneath it.
There is. And I have Beth to thank, and then I don't think Coral made it today, but I met somebody that was like, your art would look great printed on a dress. And I was like, that's interesting. And we got a couple of pieces printed, met more people that are doing the same thing, and then it just like started to make sense to, I have my favorite Brave poncho that I wear, and I like to curl up in when I just want to feel brave or be colorful, and this dress, and like it all makes me feel good. It all has a story, and it's like wearing your mantra with you wherever you're going. Going to give a talk, going to network, which I don't like, but then the very first networking event I went with my dress. I finally felt like I was showing up as Erica. Usually I just sit in the back and it's just like, oh gosh, what do I say to people? And I put that dress on and people were just like, wanted to meet me and say hi. So it's a combination of like me just finally being able to be me in a very colorful way. And then having something that I wear that is meaningful. Yeah.
Good. Well, part of art is finding who you actually are. So it was the photographic process that you've been digging through and plowing through that allows you to heal, allows you to grow, and allows you to find who you are. Because 10 years ago, you might have been just wearing a black turtleneck, head to toe, hiding in the back, and now it's electric. You mentioned earlier that you never thought you'd be wearing so many vibrant colors, but it suits you.
Pink. I'm wearing pink. I was looking at my sister.
Okay.
I hated pink when I was growing up. Now it's pink.
Well, and that's fine, because everyone, that's life, and moving on and moving forward means change. If people are the exact same as they were when they were 10 or 20 or 30 or whatever it was, then that seems really dull. Who wants to get stuck and stay in the same mindset, listening to the same music, reading the same books over and over again, doing the same thing over and over and over again? That's, in my mind, that seems really stale. And one of the best parts of life is going out and tasting something new, seeing something new, changing, growing. If you're not growing, then you're not living. You always need to be learning something. You always need to be moving forward. And this is part of the journey. So, 20 years ago, 20 years ago you weren't a photographer, but even 10 years ago, you weren't doing work like this, because this work is representative of your life right now. And, not necessarily 10 years ago, but, 10 years ago was a lifetime ago. And that kind of circles back to healing and growing and learning again, is that you are using your art to reflect your current life, which is a really good thing. It's a great thing. And it helps you to heal and helps you to find yourself. Yeah. And the work is great. So you keep, you keep apologizing for buying flowers. And you've apologized for it a couple of times, and you certainly shouldn't. And first of all, because it started you on this journey. But it always makes me a little bit sad when people say, oh yeah, I went out and I treated myself and I bought something nice for myself and I really shouldn't. That's the list of shoulds, and sometimes it's a shouldn't. But if you do something that brings you such immense joy, then it should be celebrated, and not, you shouldn't heap tons of guilt on yourself. It's not like you have to, well, I hope you didn't take a second mortgage out to buy the dahlias, but.
Our 80 varieties of dahlias.
But I mean, it's all. I mean, when it's like you'd say, "Oh, well, why should I take a vacation? Because I'm just going to end up back at home again in a week." And it's not. You know, it's in that short window of time. You know, the flowers only have a short time on this earth, but it's it's a wonderful time on its earth, and it brings you lots of joy, and it explodes with beauty, and it just shows up and it says, "You better capture me because I'm fleeting," and you do. So, I mean, you photograph flowers other than dahlias. There are tulips. There are other flowers in there. So, I mean, do you just find stuff you like? I mean, that's pretty much that's where it starts and ends.
Yeah.
Which is fine. That's good.
Yeah. I have a flower farmer that I'll just ask her to bring a bucket of whatever over. Or we try to grow our own on the family farm. Or I take classes with Miss Anita. Or, yeah, it's like wherever, or I'm at Trader Joe's walking through and something.
They have good flowers.
They do have very good flowers. So, yeah.
It's not often I hear a list of art ingredients being described as a bucket of whatever. But it's a great phrase, and it's a great place to start.
Well, flower growers, they know what's special, right? So she knows what she's grown that is something special. I don't know that, so I'm just going to bring me a bucket of
stuff.
Yes, and she'll pick up. So, yeah.
So, and I mean, flowers, for as beautiful as they are, they're not perfect. I mean, your paintings aren't perfect. Your paintings aren't controlled. Because it sounds like you drop the alcohol ink and they just run anywhere they want. Flowers are organic things, so they just grow however they want. So a flower may be really beautiful, but it's not going to be perfectly symmetrical. And so the flowers themselves are irregular. The paintings are erratic at best in that they're uncontrollable. You've got a really viscous dye that's just kind of running all over the place in an abstract pattern. And now you're doing the in-camera multiple exposure, which is a very difficult thing to do. Most people would have taken the easy route and done it in Photoshop, but you've chosen the much more challenging and random way of doing it. Obviously you prefer this way.
I do.
There's a lot of randomness in there, and your personality tends to lean more towards perfectionism and control. And yet you've chosen chaos every step of the way, and you've yielded beautiful results. So how do you want to talk about your process a little bit, about how you marry these things together? I mean, you've got a painting here, and you've got a flower here, or I should say you've got a bunch of paintings here, and you've got a bunch of flowers here. How do you pick and choose? How do you overlay? How do you choose?
So the engineer in me is like, so I've always had the engineer and the artist. And I wanted to learn to let go of the perfectionism. Because I think beauty is in imperfection. And that's why we're all so beautiful, right? It's not because we're perfect little daisies. Like, we're all different, and we all are learning different things, and even when we make mistakes, that's what makes us beautiful. So this process, I chose specifically, I wanted to make it difficult, because I wanted to discover what would be there if it was hard to do, if I wasn't controlling everything. And because I don't control everything, not every day is like a beautiful, like, yeah, I just made the next best thing. Like, sometimes I'll have shoots that are terrible, and I'm like, do I even know what I'm doing anymore? So I like that. And one thing I do have going for me is all my experience with medical imaging. Like, I started to learn how to read images back in high school when I would go to the hospital with my mom, who was she was a X-ray tech then a CT tech, and I could look and see, I could pick out what was wrong. I didn't think I would go into imaging, but then I ended up back in medical imaging these last 12 years, working on brain MRI. So researching the brain of elderly people with dementia or other things going on. So I was good at looking at the images and finding things in the images. So, a brain bleed or, I don't know, vascular abnormalities and stuff like that. So I could look at something that was two-dimensional and kind of see in three-dimensional, and it was just like a kind of a complicated way of looking at one thing but seeing multiple things at the same time. And I think that really helps me with this work, is that I can see a painting, I can see a flower, I can see, sometimes I add 2 or 3 other things for like texture or color. And overlaying things and bringing them together, I can kind of see it and know that it'll work, even though I'm still not sure what the heck it's really going to look like. Because when you start to add all these colors together, you never get what you start with. So I get a lot of purples because I like reds and pinks, and colors are always, changing. I get a lot of greens because I like yellows and blues. So, so yeah, there's a lot of planning, and then there's a lot of just letting it be whatever it's going to be and trusting that it's going to come out cool.
Okay. Learning to let go is a hard part for someone who likes to control. But photography itself is a very technical craft. And so I've heard a lot of people talk about the dichotomy between being an engineer, a controlling engineer, and a free thinking artist. And too often it seems like they're viewed as being pitted against each other because they couldn't possibly get along and they have to be mortal enemies. And that's absolutely not true in my mind. It's two parts of your personality, but it's 2 parts of every personality as well. And I've looked at a lot of photographs over the years, and I've met a lot of photographers over the years, and I've seen people who hang a print on the wall and it is technically precise and perfect. It is exquisite in the, it was the perfect exposure, the perfect print, the perfect everything. The brand of tripod was really expensive, and everything about it is just so crisp and technically precise, and it is the most boring picture in the world. And in my mind, that's a failure because it's not worth looking at. I don't care how technically precise it is. If it's boring, if it doesn't do anything for me, I don't care. Meanwhile, on the other side of that, I've seen people who are just bursting with ideas, who obviously have a lot to say, and they hang it on the wall, and I say, wow, there's a lot of potential in there. There's so much in there that I want to see, and you obviously have so much to say, but the picture's out of focus, and it was poorly exposed, and the print is bad, and it's an ugly frame, and there's so many little bits that detract from it that, in my mind, that I'm thinking this is also kind of a failure because you are not expressing it very well at all. So photography requires a certain amount of technical precision, but you also have to have something to say. You can't write poetry until you learn vocabulary. And you need to have good vocabulary, but you also have to have something to say. And the 2 go hand in hand, so you really have to use them both and balance them both. And in this instance, you have something to say, and you know how to say it. And so that's why I think these images are so successful. And they're consistent, and they're compelling, and...
Done it was by, I didn't even know how it happened, where I had 2 images. So how do you do that with a digital camera?
There's a setting. There's a setting, a multiple exposure setting. So I think it depends.
That I don't even know.
When I discovered it, I was like, what? They still do this? So I know my D600 does it. I don't know what other cameras do, but
I'll have to check. I have an old, I mean, it's a digital, but it's, an old Nikon, but my other question is why did you choose to do print your photographs on glass? Like to have them...
the metal.
Or is that, it's metal?
It's metal,
Oh,
yeah. Because I feel that the colors look the best on metal. It's a really modern feel, and it just people walk by them and they're like drawn to them. Like they'll stop and say, "Wow." Whereas, I mean, the other paper prints are okay. Like they're still pretty, but the metal. There's something about the metal that makes it more.
Well, it's kind of like the backlighting on a computer. It gives that glow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think it works well with the subject matter. Thank you.
Of the stories that you shared about your art, how do you see that in the next month, year, in getting your story out to people who need to hear your story, such as the Cancer Center in Pittsburgh here, the Hillman Cancer Center? Your art would be beautiful, but the story behind it, how it gives people hope and encouragement, and start where you are and one step at a time. Do you foresee taking that story either on the road or in our local community and inspiring people who maybe have similar stories to yours?
I would love to. I hadn't thought about that. I've always wanted to be a speaker. I love doing this kind of stuff. That's a great suggestion. I think I'll catch up to you.
And there are very few cancer support groups I've found. Because I'm a survivor of my husband. And I looked for other, but this, like, you would be a wonderful inspiration for people going through treatment or families.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely think about that. I'm going to write a memoir, and I have another book inspired by, a lot of people would ask you, what can I do for you? I don't know. Like, thank you. I don't know. And they wouldn't know either. But then, I paid attention to what people would send me and what I would do to say I love you to somebody else. And I want to write a book about the small things we do to say I love you to each other, to help support people that that are looking for ideas to help support each other through that. So, thank you. Any other questions before I release? Thank you all for being here and listening to us. I hope you have a good day.
Thank you.
Congratulations.